Good day everyone, this is Everdesign Encarnitas, a third year B.Ed student, and welcome to my another pre-recorded presentation. In this video, I will be discussing the major themes and issues in Philippine history, covering historical concepts, primary sources, conflicts and controversies, political and social developments, and the importance of local and oral history. This video is designed to help us better understand Philippine history and prepare us for the licensure examination for teachers or LET. This video is divided into 7 main parts, starting with the introduction to history and ending with the promotion of local and oral history. Here is our learning objectives. By the end of this video, learners should be able to define history and explain the role of historians, recognize key social, political, economic, and cultural developments, appreciate the Filipino cultural heritage, institutions, and oral history, examine the historical progression of the Philippine Constitution, agrarian reform, and taxation policies have changed over time. Now let's dive into the introduction to history. But first, let's define what is history. So history is the systematic and critical study of past human events using evidence such as written documents, artifacts, oral testimonies, and records. It does not only tell what happened, but it explains why events happened and how they affected people and societies. So the subject matter of history focuses on people. When we say people, those are the heroes, leaders, ordinary citizens. Then events, those are wars, revolutions, reforms, ideas, the nationalism, democracy, and the religion. Third is institutions, those are the government, church, economy, and education. History emphasizes human actions over time and their consequences. For example, studying the Philippine Revolution of 1896 is not just about dates. It also involves understanding why Filipinos revolted, who led them, and how it shaped national identity. So here are the questions and issues in history. History asks critical questions such as what really happened, why did it happen, who recorded the event, and whose perspective is missing. So the issue arises because sources may be biased, incomplete, or contradictory. Historians must question sources instead of accepting them at face value. For example, Spanish records of colonial events often favored Spain's interests. Filipino historians question these records to uncover the Filipino perspective. Next is the history and the historians. Historians are not mere record keepers. They interpret evidence, analyze context, and recognize bias. Because historians come from different backgrounds, interpretations of history may differ. One of the example is the Cavite Mutiny. It was interpreted by Spanish officials as a rebellion, while Filipino historians view it as a labor protest. Now let's move on to the content and contextual analysis of selected primary sources. It is a brief summary of the first voyage around the world by Antonio Pigafetta. Pigafetta's account documents Magellan's expedition and early encounters with Filipinos. It describes local customs, religion, and political structures. It is available as a primary source, but it reflects a European colonial perspective. For example, Pigafetta described Filipino as simple and uncivilized, revealing European bias rather than objective truth. Next is the KKK and the Kartilya ng Katipunan. The Kartilya ng Katipunan serve as the moral guide of the Katipunan. It emphasizes equality, discipline, love of country, and respect for women, showing that the revolution was moral and ideological, not just political. For example, one teaching states that a person's worth is not based on wealth or status. It is an idea ahead of its time. Next is the Proclamation of the Philippine Independence. It was issued on June 12, 1898, and it declared independence from Spain. However, it was not internationally recognized and mainly represented elite interests. Still, it symbolizes Filipino nationalism. While independence was declared, the Philippines was later colonized by the United States, showing the limits of the proclamation. Next is Corazon Aquino's speech before the U.S. Congress. So Aquino's speech highlighted the peaceful restoration of democracy after martial law. It appealed for U.S. support and emphasized human rights and democratic governance. She compared the Marcos dictatorship to tyranny and presented democracy as the Filipino people's choice. Now let's move forward to the Philippine history, the spaces for conflict and controversies. So the question is, where did the first Catholic Mass take place? The debate centers on Limasawa versus Butuan, and the historical documents including Pigafetta's work support Limasawa. This case shows the importance of evidence-based history. The geographic descriptions in Pigafetta's writing match the Limasawa's location. Next is the Cavite Mutiny of 1872. Spanish officials portrayed that the mutiny as a major rebellion to justify repression. Next is the differing accounts of 1872. Filipino historians argue that it was a small labor dispute exaggerated by Spain, leading to the unjust execution of Gomburza. The workers protested the removal of privileges, not colonial rule. So the question is, did Rizal retract? The Balaguer testimony claims that Jose Rizal took back his retracted. It is writing against the Catholic Church before he died. According to this account, Rizal signed a document saying he returned to the Catholic faith, and this version supports the church position that Rizal did not die opposing religion. Next is the testimony of the Cuerpo de Vigilancia. This testimony comes from guards and witnesses present during Rizal's last hours. However, their statements do not match each other and contain many inconsistencies. Because there is no original signed retraction document proven to be authentic, and many historians doubt the claim. This issue shows how conflicting accounts can make historical truth difficult to determine. Next is the Cry of Rebellion, 1896. The Cry of Rebellion refers to the event when Filipinos openly resisted Spanish rule by tearing their cedulas. Those are the community tax certificates. Some accounts say it happened in Balintawak, while others say Pugadlawin. These differences show that history can be influenced by memory, politics, and available evidence, not just facts. The social, political, economic, and cultural issues in Philippine history. These issues explain how Philippine society developed over time. They show how government, economy, culture, and people's lives are connected, and how past decisions affect the present. The evolution of the Philippine Constitution. First is the Biak na Bato Constitution, 1897. This was a temporary constitution created during the revolution against Spanish or Spain. Its goal was to end Spanish rule and set up a revolutionary government. Second is the Malolos Constitution, 1899. This was the first Republican Constitution in Asia. It emphasized that powers comes from the people and promoted representative government and national sovereignty. Next is the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. This constitution prepared the Philippines for self-government under American rule. It created democratic institutions and planned for full independence. Next is the 1973 Constitution that was used during the Marcos administration. This increased the power of the president and allowed the continuation of martial law. Because of this, democratic freedoms were limited and many human rights were violated. The Constitution weakened the system of checks and balances, leading to authoritarian rule under the cover of law. Next is the attempts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution. Discussions about charter change focus on improving the economy, changing the political system, and making government more efficient. However, many fear it could be abused. Let's move on to the policies on agrarian reform. First is land ownership under Spain. Large lands were owned by friars and elites, while farmers had little or no land. This caused inequality and poverty. Second is land ownership under Americans. The Americans introduced land reforms, but this did not fully solve the land concentration among wealthy families. Third is post-war interventions. After the World War II, the government tried to redistribute the land, but results were limited due to weak implementation. Next is the agrarian reform under Marcos. Marcos promised land reform, but it was selectively applied and did not benefit to all farmers. Next is the post-1986 agrarian reform or CARP. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program is aimed to give land to farmers. However, resistance from landowners and legal problems limited its success. Let's move on to the evolution of Philippine taxation. Taxation during Spanish period. Taxes included tribute and forced labor mainly to benefit the Spain. Taxation under the Americans, a more organized tax system was introduced to fund public services. Taxation during the Commonwealth period. Taxes were used to support nation building and government institutions. Last is fiscal policy from 1946 to present. Modern taxation supports education, health services, infrastructure, and development. We have the social and cultural issues in Philippine history. First is Filipino cultural heritage. This includes traditions, values, languages, and arts passed down through generations. It helps shape Filipino identity. Second, Filipino-American relations. These relations are rooted in colonial history and continue through political ties, trade, migration, and culture. Next is the government peace treaties with Muslim Filipinos. Peace treaties aim to correct historical injustice, promote autonomy, and bring lasting peace in Mindanao. Here are the role of institutions. First is schools. It teaches peace education and respect for diversity. Second, corporations and industries. These provide jobs and economic opportunities to support peace. Third is religious groups. It promotes interfaith dialogue and understanding. The biography of a prominent Filipino shows leadership and efforts toward peace and unity. Now let's move on to critical evaluation and promotion of local and oral history. First is museums. It preserves artifacts and help people understand the past events. Second, historical shrines. It honors heroes and important national events. Third, cultural performances. Those are the dances, music, and drama to tell historical stories. Fourth is the indigenous practices. It preserves pre-colonial traditions and knowledge. And the last one is religious rites and rituals. It shows cultural beliefs and continuity over time. In conclusion, Philippine history is not just about dates and events. It helps us understand people, ideas, struggles, and identity. By studying history using primary sources, debates, social issues, and culture, Learners develop critical thinking and a deeper love for being Filipino. Understanding history helps us better understand the present and build a responsible future.